Today's Road to 50 Million, I titled Sorrow. And I picked as a background this angel, a weeping angel, which I thought was a beautiful picture. And I want to talk about sorrow from three or four different perspectives. Um, Sorrow, first of all, is a natural piece of life. It's something you have and I have, and we're going to continue to have. And that's okay. Like if we didn't experience sorrow, we wouldn't have a good sense of happiness. If everything was just okay all the time, there's not a lot of the texture of life comes from the contrasts. I don't know if you listen to Abraham Hicks or any of that, but if you do, there's a lot of talk in there about contrast, and contrast is opposition or polarity. You can talk about it a lot of different ways. But sorrow often comes when what is unexpected happens and it's not what we wanted. So, a big reversal financially, or someone dies, or someone gets sick, or someone, unfriends you either on social media or in actual real life. I have a person that I know had a good friend tell him we're not going to be friends anymore, and caused a great deal of internal sorrow, sadness, weeping, because the person who was received that information was really affected, offended, and then started wondering, what did they do wrong, and what was wrong with them, and all the rest. So, what do we do with this? Because sorrow, whether it comes from something we did and it has an unintended consequence, or it comes from something that happened around us, or something that happened directly in our world, sorrow is an emotion. It is a collection of neurotransmitters, feelings that comes from something crappy I'm sad about. And we're just a few days before one big holiday in the world, and I realize that there are half the world may not celebrate Christmas in any way, and that's fine. But whatever any holiday is, this time of year is a big several holidays. So let's just talk about Christmas for a minute, because I'm Christian. I worship Jesus Christ. I'm a disciple and follower of Christ. But I honor everyone else's absolute right to worship or not and follow whatever they follow. So I'm going to talk in terms of Christmas for a minute. Around the holidays this time of year, that's supposed to be giving gifts and joyful, and if you're religious, a remembrance of the birth of Christ, the Savior of the world, his ministry, teaching of love, and everything else. And what I love about that is, regardless of the tradition that you follow, whether it's Christian or not, nearly every big tradition teaches love, kindness, the idea of doing to others as though you were the others. The golden or platinum or other rule that means to love. And sorrow is the feeling that we have from lots of things, but for me, sorrow comes from around the holidays from a couple of reasons. One of the things that brings me sorrow around the holidays is many of you may know I have 10 children. Yep, 10 real life children. And when I tell people that, they don't hear me at first, and then they say, 10? Yes, I have 10 real life children. And I have a couple more that are living with us that are not my children, but Joy and I have kind of adopted them in our family, not legally, but adopted them to love and to help. So that brings it to a dozen. But the 10 children I have struggles with some still. There's no negative feeling or anger or frustration that I hold in my heart for any of them, because I do and have done the work to forgive, to ask forgiveness, to do the best that I can to fix things. But like always, if maybe you have a friend or a loved one or a stepchild or a spouse or a parent who doesn't communicate, and if and when they do, it's negative, it's accusatory, it's blaming, that brings sorrow. And maybe you've done all that you can. And we've done another whole conversation about forgiveness and the power that comes from that. But today I just want to talk about sorrow and what to do with it and how to learn from it and how to actually lean into it. I used to hate sorrow. I used to hate the feeling of sadness that welled up inside of me about anything. And as I mentioned, with 10 kids, I have some of my kids who don't communicate with me right now. And I have some that are pretty adamant about that and negative and angry and sometimes use a lot of violent, I won't say violent in terms of physical violence, but a lot of bitter, angry, vicious sort of language and rhetoric, blaming me for everything that's wrong in their lives. My reaction to that is not defensive anymore. It used to be, but it's just sadness because I've done everything I can to fix that. But here's the interesting thing. Instead of having sorrow hurt me like it used to really just eat my heart out. Now it builds me, it lifts me, and it makes me more human. Every time I feel sorrow, you know what happens? I have more compassion. I love you more. I don't know what sorrow is going on in your life right now, but whatever it is, I love you for living through it. If I could offer anything at all, it would be to forgive yourself or others, but most of all, learn from. Let the sorrow and the sadness teach you. Let it teach me. One of the reasons this came to me this powerfully is there's a Hawaiian system of forgiveness called ho'oponopono. And it is a big, long word and has lots of O's in it. In fact, O is the only vowel. And what I love about that thing is it's just 4 statements is the core of it. And it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, I'm grateful. Now, the thing that was really weird for me is even when I thought someone had offended me and it was all their fault and they needed to do this and they needed to apologize and how dare they, whatever, the teaching of Ho'oponopono is to, I'm sorry. And so at first I couldn't do any of that. The sorrow was overwhelming and the anger and blame was overwhelming. But then it became really easy because you know why? Here's what I started thinking. I started thinking, wait a minute. I'm not even talking about the deed itself, but the fact that the relationship is struggling, the fact that there is anger or negativity, I am genuinely sorry for that. I'm sorry for having been a part of any activity that resulted in negative feelings. We are connected in love as humans. We are built from the same cloth of the universe, the same creator, etc., etc. So it became easy for me to experience sorrow for the negative relationship and to say, please forgive me. And so that all belongs in the conversation about forgiveness, but it comes out of the sorrow that I used to feel. And a little of it was, or maybe half of it or something, was feeling sorry for myself. Oh, how could they be so mean? How could this and that? And, you know, the pity party kind of sorrow. And that isn't, I've never found that to be productive. So that's all eliminated by choice from life. And what I want to offer you right now is this. Regardless of where your sorrow comes from, if it's something that happened around you or that someone said or did, instead of letting it go to anger or blame as a possibility, let it be a refining fire in you. Simply experience sorrow, be the being that understands it and then gets past it, rises above, moves through, and is refined by sorrow. That may seem harsh or hard, and I'm certainly not trying to tell you what to do, but I have found that by fully allowing the sadness of sorrow to educate, to teach, and to refine me, I become more compassionate. I become more patient. I become more tolerant, more loving, That doesn't mean at all that I don't stand for something or stand up hard and defend. It doesn't mean any of that. In fact, this little necklace, I wear an amulet or something every day, different ones, and this one is the sword of truth. And it reminds me to fight always for truth and for justice. And so allowing the sorrow to refine us, educate us, teach us, mellow us, is not hiding or wimping out or refusing to protect and defend. It is simply allowing our character and life to be refined by sorrow. Now, there's another kind of sorrow, so that's one whole conversation. That's period, and I'm going to move on to something else. My life was pockmarked, covered, buried in depression for decades. I believe I know the causes, but that's not important right now. Whatever they were, from my young teen years until I was 52. So for 35 years, 40 years, I believed that I wasn't okay as a person. I was fundamentally flawed. And what that did is I felt sorry for myself, but I also lived in sorrow, and the sorrow was I'll never be good enough. I'll never be okay. I'm less than as a person, as a man, as a creative, as a child, as a brother, every way that I could imagine, I believed that. And that living in sorrow didn't refine me. It dragged me down and down and down. And the sad thing for me, at least, is I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't know how to go get help. And I didn't go talk to someone. I didn't take advantage of those things. And so one of the things I want to say in this conversation on sorrow is, regardless of where it comes from, whether it's the refining elements of some adversity, or whether it's your own internal sorrow, which for me was deep, deep depression and, doubting my own worth, and then furiously sabotaging my life over and over again because I believed I was no good. Here's the offer. Go get help. Like, talk to someone. And if that person doesn't do any good, someone else. Because what I know is a burden when I share it is lighter. A burden when I am able to talk about it helps. It doesn't take it away, and it doesn't wave a wand, but it does make the clouds break a little. And it's not permanent. Like, if you talk to somebody, you may need to do it again and again and again and again. But take advantage of opportunities. I didn't do that. I lived internal turmoil for years and decades, and with all that stuff going on inside, of course, it went to really dark, dark places. And this episode isn't about talking about those. But here's what I also know. When I finally did get help, get healing, talk to people, stop judging myself, stop making myself the core of evil for every responsible thing in the universe. When I stopped doing that and just started looking at events and myself, I started an opportunity to grow, to see things as they really are. That developed compassion in my heart. I would suggest and offer that it will do the same for you. One of the things that I did in my healing was to write a book. And the book that I wrote was Tightrope of Depression: My Journey from Darkness, Despair, and Death to Light, Love, and Life. That chronicled those years of depression and all the struggles that went on there. It also chronicled some recovery and efforts to change. And that was the start of help. So wherever your sorrow comes from, it might be associated with the holidays, it might be associated with family, it might be associated with things you've done wrong, missed opportunities, broken dreams, or death, or wherever it comes from. Do what you can do. Don't sit powerless, because above all, you are not powerless. You are infinitely capable. So I want to invite you to, there's 4 invitations today. Usually I have 3, but today there's an extra one. The first one is Road to 50 Million is my commitment to help 50 million people to learn to identify and to serve with their gifts, to make a life of income and influence if they choose with their gifts, to do something that makes them feel powerful because you are powerful, makes you feel powerful. That's first invitation. If you're already living that kind of life, I'd like to talk to you. So please reach out and let's chat, because I love to get acquainted with people that are using their gifts for service and or making business or an impact in the world. Second invitation is most people that I talk to are not living a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, but they're just getting by at various levels of getting by, and they are yearning for something more. Those are the 50 million that I have committed to help. So that is my invitation, is to allow me that opportunity. Reach out and let's talk. Maybe I can help you, maybe I can't, but I would love to get to know you, to empathize, to love, to support, and to suggest whatever I can to serve you. The third invitation I have, third of 4, is if you'd like to help me get to 50 million, I want to talk to you and figure out what we can create together. The fourth invitation is this. Later this afternoon, in a couple of hours, I'm going to do another song. Now, if you followed the channel, you know that I've been doing a song every day for the past couple of days, and I intend to continue to do that for many, many weeks. The one today is called Anthem of Sorrow. And it is a song that I wrote in the book, or with the book, Tightrope of Depression, the struggles that I experienced. So I wrote a song called Anthem of Sorrow, which talks about that whole feeling. And the reason, my sister asked me, why are you writing songs that are about dark things? And the reason is because there's a power of connection there. There's a power of truth and connection when people share experiences, not in a commiserating way, oh, you poor thing, and that's negative reinforcement, but in a way of connection and rapport, because there is deep compassion that's come to me because of what I've been through. So love to you. I would invite you to join me later today when I do the Anthem of Sorrow. I'll tell you the story of the song, and then I'll perform it for you. Love to see you there. Regardless, I'll see you tomorrow on the road to 50 million.